Today on 2 Minute IT Jams, we have Scott Hagenus, who is the Senior Sales Manager at EMT Distribution. So EMT Distribution is a channel company with over 25 years of experience in IT product distribution, and it has a focus on cyber threat mitigation solutions. So welcome to the Jam, Scott.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No worries. So to begin, could you tell us, for a business who hasn't worked with EMT Distribution before, what are your key products and offerings?
Yeah, sure. So probably what I'll do is I'll start with a bit of a background on EMT. And as you said, we are dedicated around cybersecurity. So essentially what we do is we look for solution sets that address the Australian Information Security Manual's mitigation strategies for cyber threats. So key to us are like the top four, the Essential 8 and the ISM 37. Lots and lots of jargon there, but the reality is what they are is they are the best mitigation strategies to stop cyber attacks from actually happening effectively within your organization. So key to us are things like doing application whitelisting, patch management for third-party patching as well as operating systems. We do privileged access management across the board. That's a really key piece for us as well as your normal sort of cyber threat mitigation strategies around sort of antiviruses, vulnerability scanning, and so on. So we have a fairly broad depth of solution sets, but each one of them is addressing a certain need within the Information Security Manual.
Yeah. And within those sort of things that you've mentioned, what are your most recent improvements or innovations in your offerings?
Right. Well, that's a really interesting one. We handle from enterprise down to SMB from all sizes. So we've had a few really cool additions recently around threat intelligence as well as a vulnerability scanning side of things, and also from addressing the cybersec needs of the SMB and the MSP space. So there's a bunch of stuff that's been going on with us recently, but one of the ones I personally really like is on the Stealthbits side. The reason why I like that particularly is because it actually addresses data access governance and Active Directory in one platform. And if you think about that, that essentially is addressing the privileged access management, not just from a typical PAM space, but also the access that is granted to the sensitive data that organizations have, or the data that's critical to them. You know, may not necessarily be particularly sensitive, but certainly critical to the organization. So that's one of the, I would put a big tick on.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And what kind of trends or spaces are your product development teams kind of laser focused on these days?
So the laser focus for us is actually around the top four mitigation strategies and around some of, not all of the Essential 8, but most of the Essential 8. So we really do concentrate on making sure that what we do is we supply businesses and our partners with solutions that are easy to implement and easy to use, that are highly effective at what they do within those top four and the top 8, or the Essential 8, and are cost effective for the space they sit in too. So probably what I mean, if people don't know what the top four and the Essential 8 are, essentially these mitigation strategies that are designed to pretty much knock out over 85% of all the sort of targeted attacks that happen. Once again, going back into that is the application whitelisting, patch third-party softwares, patch operating systems, privilege access management, or restriction of privilege, I should say. So there's those four, and then from there it's things like making sure that you've got backup, making sure that you do your application hardening, make sure you're restricting sorry, not privilege, but macros, or where macros can execute from. Some of those things are more of an operational thing and not so much a solution set perspective. But for us on the EMT side, addressing those, those strategies, that's where we focus, right? But doing it in such a way that organizations can do it quickly, easily, and cost effectively. That's not necessarily the easiest thing to do when you look at those particular strategies, but we've found the right solution sets to do it. Once again, it goes back into the Stealthbits side, which I kind of get excited around. And the reason for that is because the efforts that Stealthbits have put in is in doing, protecting the organization's sensitive data and the credentials that are used to steal it. And if you think about every breach scenario that happens, from a real breach, the first things that happen is that, there's a reconnaissance phase. People would start to do phishing. They steal credentials, and maybe at a low level, they get into the organization, and then they start to do more reconnaissance internally, and then they escalate their privilege. The reason why they escalate their privilege is what they're trying to do is get to a point where they have enough privilege to steal data or to interrupt business, right? I mean, that's the goal, whether that be, criminal activity, whether it could just be malicious activity, whether it's, state sponsored, it doesn't really matter at what level. The reality is that the target is always reasonably the same. And once again, going back to the Stealthbits side, what I really enjoy and what I like about what they're doing is they've got a really laser focus on being able to address both the hygiene within the directory structure or the privilege structure that an organization has around Active Directory, and then also addressing the hygiene around the actual data, the access to the data itself. And then on top of that, doing some really cool stuff when it comes to the defensive side, where they did, implement machine learning, they understand what's happening within the network, and then they can block threats based on, what they're seeing. So that's pretty neat stuff.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. So we at Tech Day kind of have a special interest in the wider APAC region and the ANZ region, kind of into that as well. So what infrastructural resources do you have in those regions?
Right. So EMT Distribution is based in Australia. We also have a Singapore office. We are part of RIPE, so recently acquired by RIPE, and RIPE has offices all around Southeast Asia, into India, and also up into Japan as well. So we cover a massive area within Asia, APAC, and Japan as well.
Cool. And finally, for you, Scott, if an enterprise end user or a channel partner wanted to engage with you guys, learn more about your solutions, how can they get started? How can they get in touch?
Yeah, totally, absolutely. All they have to go to is www.emtdist.com, hit the contact us. They can pick up the phone, give us a call, they can email us. And in fact, through any one of our vendors that we support, or that's in our portfolio, generally what would happen is if they're interested in a particular product, they can even go to their websites, fill in the contact forms, and we will be the ones who end up contacting the customers. So yeah, absolutely. And that's partners, it's end users. We're a channel organization, but we're there to support the vendors as well and make sure that end users actually understand the products and get the best experience they have with it. And that's how we help our partners as well.
Perfect. Sounds good. Well, thank you for that, Scott. That brings us to the end of today's IT Jam. Thanks for joining me again today, Scott.
Yep, thank you, Nick.